It's Friday, Feedback Friday on Monday. Hey, yeah, change it up a little bit because I promised I'd do something for the videos last week, but it was my sister's birthday party on Saturday and I had to make her a cake. You may have seen it on Twitter. If you didn't, I won't belabor it here, but if you did, there were some pretty funny tweets surrounding that. But, yeah, I am doing this now because, first of all, there will be more Trauma Tuesdays. Because of that, I don't want to do too much self-help in a week. So, yeah, we are going to take a pause on that. So, because it's kind of the same thing. There's a lot of crossover. It's not quite the same thing. There's no cat videos on this. Instead, this is a game called Displaced. It's a roguelike with a narrative focus, and that may make you be going, right now, and you'd be right. It is not the grueling, you have to check every move roguelike experience you would expect. It is very much a game where you kind of, it's a simple concept where you're escaping kind of a war zone with your friends or people you don't know that well. I don't know, it's just you pick your party and then you go off into the Mino world. And I thought this was actually a pretty good one for this. First of all, because there's no voices in it, so we don't have the clashing, but also because we are talking about sort of trauma and you know, internet fights and all that stuff. It made sense, and it's an indie game that somebody might be interested in. I'm really glad I don't have to assign numeric scores anymore, because this one would be one of those ones that, how do you compare it to anything? It's very much one of those things where if you like interactive experiences and you kind of want to submit yourself to that, oh, half your party dies and that's part of it, because of the stories that are told along the way, the people you kind of meet and the choices you have to make, and you know, immersing yourself in a world that's not so nice. That's awesome. The thing is, I think there are a lot of games that do that. So, the nice thing about these sorts of videos, I can just let you guys have a look at it while I talk about other stuff, and you can make up your own mind whether this is a game that is for you. It is on Steam, and I was provided with a review copy. So there you go. Disclosure, yes, I did not pay for this. I said, hey, this looks interesting, give me a code, and they gave me a code. That is how it works. Back in my day, back before everything went crazy, you didn't have to declare that. It was kind of assumed that that was why you were doing anything public for a game. But in the days of people, you know, going on that midnight thing on Best Buy and getting in streaming, now you have to declare that the game company gave you a game because people were doing shenanigans. This is the world we live in, and this is the world that Wednesday's special video on the whole, you know, the yearly summer Let's Kick Gamers articles. It's like clockwork because of some of the conferences that come out at around this time between Comic-Con and a few other things. The UN Women's Summit tends to be a not so great one for gamers because a lot of the people that used to be on the broadband file followed the money over to the women file, and they find a way to make those be the same thing. And so they go, oh, harassment on the internet. And that's why things get kind of stupid. But it's also, you know, hey, it's Comic-Con, so all this geeky stuff makes sense this week. We can go back to hating all the nerds all over again next week, har, har, har. And so there tend to be this perfect storm of idiocy where, how do we make something newsworthy but talk about geeky stuff? Well, we'll find someone and make them into a convenient victim. But the comments were, it's actually, you know, some people might not think that a video on Gamergate would generate just some really interesting comments. They're all over the map. But it's actually worth going through and reading just because, you know, people talk about Trump, people talk about why Clinton lost, and there's actually too much good stuff just go through it and read it, because there's some really interesting points. A lot of stuff I really agree with. Like, it's really on point. I do want to point out just one comment, because it was about me, and I thought it was kind of funny. One person said, Leanna is like an internet mommy for gamers, always there to protect from the meanies. And someone said, I think she's less protecting us from meanies than giving us tools and insight in how to deal with them. I think her being in media so long gives her a unique insight in how mainstream media works, which is something many gamers don't have. Thank you. Thank you, commenter, for understanding the point. That's exactly what I'm aiming to do. Just give you guys the information. Do with it what you will. I find it easier to kind of stay chill because I know what's going on. And, you know, I was talking to my husband about this, that whole video about the I don't know exactly what it was, but it was some MTV feminist talking out her ass at a UN event about the whole VidCon, Sargon, and Anita thing. And I can understand why when you see the UN signage in the background, that can be like, yikes, what is going on? This is really, really bad. And, you know, my husband said, yeah, but those talking head sessions happen all the time. I said, I know that, and you know that, but people who are new to this don't know that, and the authority that the UN conveys can be really freaky. And it makes you kind of cynical to find out how little any of it matters. It's just people pushing money around, so one study leads to another study, leads to another study, so they can all pat each other on the back for caring, but very little really gets done in real terms because nobody can agree on anything. So that, as cynical as that is, on the other hand, you don't expect the UN to make a lot of major changes to video games. There may be some stuff around the edges. Some really crappy things can happen to individual developers because of this stuff, and that always sucks. But in the big picture, they're not going to touch the AAA publishers. That's more of an industry-wide problem that publishers are going to have to deal with, and I've talked about that at length. But yeah, it's the indie projects that are really going to get spanked by that stuff, and it sucks because indie does some interesting things, like this experiment you're watching now. And okay, they don't have voice acting and they don't have a ton of animation and, you know, like cutscenes and stuff like that because they don't have the money to do that stuff, but it's still nice to experience the ideas that somebody did. And that's why I kind of like doing these things and doing them in a non-review style process, because just, hey, here's somebody's work and I thought it was interesting enough to show. Now, whether you buy it or not, now you are aware of someone's work, and it probably took a lot of hours out of their life and means something very deep and personal to them. So that, I think there's an element of that with indie gaming that, you know, the AAA stuff, I have a very different relationship with AAA games than I do with indie stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the videos from last week. And Momo Monday last week started really slow. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. It didn't do so well. Now, it got up late because I put in 11 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. And around 1 in the afternoon, I was like, why aren't I getting any tweets about the video this week? Oh, it's not up. Shite. So it built slower, but it ended up doing okay. And a lot of people can relate to this introversion thing. No surprise, channel that deals with gaming. A lot of introverts can relate to, as one person said, if they don't get the weekend to themselves, they flip out at work. One person said that sort of introvert's dilemma is that, you know, they still want to be social, but they burn out so quickly. And I can really relate to that. It has nothing to do with the company. It's just all of a sudden I'll be like, I want to go home. You know, like those weekends where you go and it'll be, oh, it's so great, we'll share a room and all that stuff. I have one friend that I can share a hotel room with more than once. You know, anyone else, no. It just... And it's not that I'm uncomfortable with anybody else. I just need that alone time. I don't know what it is about her, but I can share a hotel room with her and sort of be, you know, it was like down in Florida or something like that for 4 days and be fine. But anybody else, unless it's just like 1 or 2 nights, I would flip out. I need the alone time. Maybe it's because we're both introverts. I don't know. But the other thing quite a few people ask me about is with the whole YouTube thing. And yes, I know I'm still working on the levels. I have not figured out this new headset yet. It was coming in quite low through the computer. I've boosted that. Now I'm having problems with it over modulating when I record audio, but one step closer, right? So, but they also asked, do I get burned out from Feedback Friday? And yes, I do. Is it as bad? It's not as bad as being in person, but it is still, at the end of it, I am really tired. I really enjoy doing them. It's really good to get that back and forth in the conversation. And, you know, when someone comments live, I can say right there, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate? And I really, really like it. But yeah, I am brain dead after the fact. And that was doing the Feedback Friday live and then doing the Wednesday streams with Lady Bits. I was not prepared for how much that would wear me out. So that is something I am struggling with, and it's left me a little bit behind on some things as a result. But I've only got 4 more weeks left of, now granted, then I've got 3 weeks until I want the first episode to come out, but still the end's sort of in sight and I can get it together after that. It's an important process, but yeah, I do, it does take some out of me. Even just being in a crowded place or someplace that's really loud, like a bar or something like that. I love kind of old buildings because the buildings themselves kind of have I don't know, older buildings kind of they aren't as weird. But if I'm in one of those places, it's like super ultra modern and everything's like metal and mirrors and all that stuff, and there's all these hipsters around and everybody's really loud and, you know, you can hear 14 conversations at the same time. Yeah, that is not my idea of a good time. And, you know, I usually end up getting sick after trade shows because just so many people around and I just get so worn out. It's not that I don't like people. I find people to be interesting little monsters. I just get tired. And that the last one, last but not least, was the first Trauma Tuesday. And I left this for last because, wow, I did this because people seemed to respond well, but I was not prepared for how much people shared. Again, I know I say this a lot, but I come at it from a perspective, like I'm still in sort of the comedy mindset of, go out, do some funny. Sometimes it'll bomb, sometimes it won't. The good show's awesome, but you can't take the good shows to heart too much, so the bad shows are really going to beat you up, which is kind of the comedian's dilemma, that you should enjoy the good ones more, but at the same time, you know. But yeah, I'm definitely going to do more. The 2 topics that people suggested I elaborate on more were what to do when you're triggered, and then advice for support people. And that second one, I was like, yeah, why didn't I think of that? That's a really good one. The first one's a little bit more obvious, but those are the next 2 I'm going to tackle. But yeah, what one person asked, you know, they found the first God of War game harder than Ascension. Ascension actually had to be dumbed down, so I don't know if this person played it after they patched it, but there was this one fight near the end. I thought it was amazing because I thought, oh yeah, because Kratos isn't quite Kratos yet, and so he's less powerful than he is in the in the original God of War, so it made sense that the game would really kick your ass. Yeah, I thought that was cool, personally, but a lot of people really didn't like it. But a lot of people responded to the fact that, you know, the body holds trauma, and one person, you know, shared their experience of just being sitting there and wham, like there's no trigger. You're just sitting there and all of a sudden you just feel awful, or it's just like flashback. And that can happen based on time of day. That can happen based on weather conditions. And yeah, time of day, I had to be told because, and it's stupid, I didn't connect it until, you know, my therapist said, was that around the time the event happened? And I said, yeah, you know, around 11:30 at night, I would just start feeling anxious and, you know, and depressed. And that's great for sleep. Anxiety, right when you're supposed to be going to sleep? Yeah, not cool. That's why I tweet at 3 a.m. because I became such a night owl. But, yeah, it's not fun, but it does, I mean, that does ebb over time, and with working at it and everything like that, it's funny because it can ebb and come back and ebb and come back, and you just sort of have to be kind and patient with yourself on that element of it. The body part is a tough one. I mean, they're experimenting on things like eye movement therapy and things like that. Didn't do a damn thing for me, but other people have good results with it, and apparently it helps with that. Another person mentioned, and this is the comment I wanted to make sure I address because it's a tough one. That is toward the end of the video, you mentioned a metaphorical reloading period where it's better to pace yourself when recovering from trauma. A problem I see a friend going through right now, I know people often use to cover up their own problems, this actually is a friend's problem and not my problem, is that he himself is doing what he's supposed to, trying to pace himself and use that reload period to get back into the fight, but people he lives with don't seem to understand that and are the ones who are pushing him to do better. What would you suggest for a situation like that? That is a tough one, and it's really common. Often the biggest impediments to you succeeding in trauma therapy are the reactions and expectations of the people around you. And it's not that anybody's a bad person, it's not that anybody's deliberately trying to sabotage you, it's that they don't understand. And, you know, this is a little known situation, and people kind of understand depression now, anxiety now, but because there's so much stigma and kind of fear and that association with military personnel and, you know, all the horror stories and all that stuff with PTSD, we have a long way to go educating other people, you know, because the first thing people think of is, oh, are you going to snap and like kill everybody around you? And the unfortunate thing is that has happened in a minority of cases, but the vast, vast, vast majority of people don't do that. It's an unfortunate situation where, you know, the really extreme cases have made it worse for everybody else. And I don't want to deny that it happens, but it happens rarely. Most people with PTSD are more likely to harm themselves than anybody else. But people do get frustrated and they get scared and they just want the thing to go away. A lot of people don't recognize that it is not a straight line. It is not a smooth curve. It's kind of a jagged thing. You'll get better, you'll slip back, you'll get better, you'll slip back, and over time you just get better and better and better. And it's, you know, everybody has bad memories. The question is it really negatively impacting your life? And that's the problem, is that so many people overuse the word trigger. You know, oh, any bad feeling is being triggered. No, it's not. And this idea that any sort of thinking about a bad thing with the past, having regret or going over. That's not PTSD. That's just human. And, you know, that's why I like the people that talk about PTSD like a brain injury as opposed to a mental health disorder. And what's the difference? Well, because you don't expect people to walk on a broken leg, right? That's going to make it worse. And thinking about trauma is the same thing. When you've injured a body part, you need to do the physiotherapy, but you don't want to re-injure it. And it's the same thing. And that's why those rest periods, like exercise, like physio, you know, after you physio, you need to put the ice on. I've always hated the ice, especially when I had to have my neck done. Oh my God, my whole body was cold. And it's like 10 minutes. I'm like, is it over? I hated the ice, but you have to do it or everything swells up and gets yucky. And it's the same thing. If the weekly sessions or bi-weekly or monthly or whatever you're doing is becoming overwhelming, you feel like it's getting worse, it is okay to take a break for a while and go back into it when you're ready. You don't want to re-injure it, and you can. And for people who don't understand, it's one of those things that unfortunately the person, you know, the affected person, the person with PTSD, they can tell other people that till they're blue in the face. The best thing to do is have them go to a session with you and have the counselor explain it to them, because they'll probably listen to them more than you. And this is certainly something you should discuss with your counselor before you bring your family in, your friend's family, to set boundaries, let them know what it's okay to tell them, what you'd rather keep private, and get sort of ground rules set. But yeah, sometimes that's it. Or you can let them listen and watch this video where I'm saying, like, yeah, sometimes you just have to stop thinking about the struggle and be a human being. And that's super important, because the last thing you want to do is become your challenge, right? Like, could you imagine that? It's Megan Ebos, who you've seen on this channel before, has massive issues with that Mariska Hargitay documentary on rape kit testing called I Am Evidence. You know, it's so dehumanizing. And for the same reason as, you know, I'm saying, you don't want to become your condition. Like, could you imagine, I am cancer, I am depression, you know, I am epilepsy. Like, no, you're a person, and that's one part of you. And if every part of your life is suddenly becoming this you versus the, you know, the monster, no. That's not healthy. You have to have other parts of your life. And if you feel like the therapy is overwhelming those other parts, the things you like, the things that do make you happy, I know one of the things I had to realize was contributing to the disordered symptoms was the fact that I was always that person who pushed through, you know, feel bad later and suck it up buttercup and all that stuff. And that's great to be able to do when you need to. But I also had to learn to give myself breaks in that regard and go, you know what? A couple days off a week isn't a bad thing. I went through periods where working 21 days straight was the norm. It wasn't an exception. I did that way too frequently, and I got really burned out. I try not to do that anymore, but I still feel lazy or selfish when I spend a whole day playing video games. Now, I'm fortunate enough to now be able to say, I gotta do it as a review, or I have to do it for Lady Bits, so I'm even more spoiled. If it wasn't for that, oh my God. Like, I find that cleaning is useful for me that way, because I put on, you know, I was watching The Hunt with John Walsh today. I know, weird, right? Like, crimes, great, but I just put it on, and it's very procedural. It's like Forensic Files is the same way, but you put that on, and I'll just like fine-tooth comb clean my bathrooms because I'm doing something, and then at the end I have a really clean room, but I was getting up, I was moving, I was focusing on a task. Stuff still got done, and so people tend to leave you alone when you're doing something like that. If you're cleaning or you're doing something that seems useful, they tend to not bug you the same way because it's useful, but that's still sort of your downtime. Exercise is super important when you're getting over something like this. Anything that's got to do with emotional well-being, you gotta get the exercise and the sleep, and one is linked to the other. And that was, I fought that so hard. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, exercising sucks because your whole body hurts. Like, when you're right in it, everything just aches, like everything. It's a bone ache and a skin ache and everything in between. And so the idea of getting up and exercising was like, what is wrong with you? But I did it, and I hated it, and I cursed every moment. But it does definitely help your sleep patterns. And after a while, you find something that you don't hate, and then you find something you actually like. And once you get that, stick with it, because it's good for you. It helps a lot. It's helping flush the body, flush some of those, the lactic acid and some of the other things that build up and make you just feel blah, which leads to more depression and lower energy and all that stuff. And of course, eating healthier and watching the alcohol and drug consumption is another thing that you're supposed to do. Most people don't. Don't beat yourself up if you don't. But there's nothing wrong with going out and indulging every so often. But if you're doing it every night, or 5 nights out of 7, then it's time to consider that you're self-medicating, and perhaps it would be a better idea and likely cheaper to get on actual medication. And I say that just because I don't drink cheap booze. I can't stand it. It's gross. Nope. And so it's like, oh wow, antidepressants would be a lot cheaper than this stuff. But I for this sort of thing, that's always a temporary thing. But if you are doing that, it's something to consider. Anti-anxiety meds, antidepressants. There's a lot of much better medications coming out now than there were. And again, you don't have to be on them forever. It's just, if you are self-medicating to cope, that's a short-term thing that can get better, like, immediately. And so take that. Don't, if you're bleeding, you bandage it. If you break your leg, you put on a cast. It's the same thing. These are splints for your mind. They eventually do come off. It's not being weak. It's being smart to seek out these tools. And I say that as, I really like my good bourbon. I really like my my red wines, the dry stuff, not sweet, but it's, now I'm doing it because it tastes good and I like it, not because blot out the world kind of thing. So hopefully that answers the question. Please follow up with me if you want to DM me on Twitter or something like that. I'd be happy to sort of talk you through it. Next one is going to be overcoming, not overcoming, but what to do when you're triggered and sort of how to get through them. And I'll let you guys comment on this, whether you'd like that one first or the support people one first. But let me know in the comments which ones you'd like. But that's a half hour, and I keep these under a half hour come hell or high water. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, the game is Displaced. Hope you enjoyed it.